Hello, I'm District 4 Councilmember Ken Remley, and welcome to my Council Conversation Show. As we kick off the new year, we have some exciting news to share about some capital improvement projects coming to the original town site. I have three guests joining me today to provide some background and discuss future plans for this area. Please welcome the city's Community Development Director, Eric Fitzer, Kevin Kellogg, Housing Manager for Maricopa County, and Cecil Yates, the Director of Property Management at Commercial Properties, Inc. Thank you guys for taking time out of your busy schedules to join me today.
Good afternoon, Councilman.
Hi.
I have some prepared questions that I'd like to ask each of you today about the things that are going on in the original town site. I have had a lot of questions from the residents as to really what is the big plan that we have involved in this project. Could you share with us what the overall plan is and what we're attempting to develop here?
Yes, council member. So one of the components that kind of came out of the Heritage District overlay was the community survey that was associated with it. And in that, the community members had a litany of items that they'd like to see brought into the OTS. As part of this project, we'd be looking at hitting on a few of those items specifically addressed in the community survey that the community members wanted to see. However, you know, kind of through this process, we'll see how those iron out, because ultimately we want to have public input on what is ultimately kind of housed within the development. But overall, in generalities, we're looking at a housing component, we're looking at commercial, we're looking at office, we're looking at open space, and trying to create kind of a mixed-use center within the Heritage District.
At the same time, I understand we'll probably also be providing all of the public services that we are providing today and maybe more. I'd like you to tell us about some of the recent history of the city's efforts relative to investment in the original town site.
Thank you, Councilmember. So some of the recent efforts, specifically in the original town site, was over the span of about 2014 to 2016-ish. One of the projects that community development had led was the Heritage District process and Heritage District overlay for the original town site. This process had a multitude of public participation efforts there at the original town site. We had kind of charrettes, other kinds of public meetings as well as having some specific surveys and so forth to see what the residents in that area wanted to see kind of in the town site. And what we heard from those efforts specifically was that there was a need for, you know, more commercial, more jobs, those kinds of things, as well as protecting some of the existing neighborhood. So that kind of transposed into the overlay that was created, that was adopted by the council, where we had the commercial overlay and the residential overlay, or the residential neighborhood overlay. So as part of that process or project, kind of then moved into, you know, how do we start implementing the zoning and the overlays and the Heritage District projects. Mm-hmm. So we've seen some residential components come in. We haven't seen a whole lot of commercial yet, but then, you know, what that's kind of allowed the city to look at was where do we start making investments into the OTS or the Heritage District. So one of the ideas was, and that came from council, was to look at strategically looking at properties within the original town site. One of those properties that we purchased just a little bit under a year ago, that we closed escrow and so forth, was the DeNormo RV Park. The DeNormo RV Park had been there since the 60s. We had the ownership had changed. New owner came in, decided that it wasn't necessarily in his best interest to keep the operation going in the RV park. He approached the city approached the owner, and we worked out a deal where the city then took acquisition of the RV park. Over the next few months, which we're still actually working on this, is we worked with those residents in the RV park that had been there for a long period of time, and we're able to transition those folks out to housing that was at least as good as what they had, if not better. So that process was kind of done through through the city as well as the council, allowing the staff to have the authority to go do that. Over these next couple weeks, we're going to be anticipating that we'll actually be going in there and actually doing some construction, not construction, but demolition into the RV park. We have some buildings that are in there that are unoccupied at this point. We have inked a deal with a contractor. We actually had the purchase orders for the fencing that came out within the last couple of weeks. So we'll be able to fence it off as well as demo some of the buildings that are in there so that they don't create any kind of issues in the area. We're also in the process of talking with 5 other landowners, and we're looking at agreements and so forth to purchase additional property in the OTS so that we can look at future potential projects in the original town site in the Heritage District.
So the whole objective of this is to create some additional opportunities for the folks that happen to live in and around the original town site, as well as to make things nicer. Is that correct?
Yes, Councilmember, specifically that, and trying to hit on some of the items that kind of came out of the overall survey that was done through the Heritage District projects, specifically on things that the community wanted to see.
Cecil, you're a new face to our city, but well known to many of the members on council. But for the folks that are watching this show, would you share with us who you are and who and what you represent?
Absolutely.
And also what made you interested in this project with the city?
Thank you, Councilman. First, thanks for the opportunity to bring me to your show and share this exciting project that we've got coming on. I've been in commercial real estate and development my whole career. I'm an award-winning developer. I moved to the Valley in 2004. And a few years later, I was actually already managing and had several buildings in Surprise that were in my portfolio. So I'm very aware of Surprise and some of the neat opportunities that exist. At that time, I think it was about 2013, 2012, a economic development group was forming to talk about some economic development opportunities in the OTS that kind of ran contiguous with the Heritage Park study and community outreach. And so I've just been staying abreast to that. And then when this opportunity came up to do a development, I now manage a little over 11 million square feet for Commercial Properties Incorporated. We're the largest locally owned commercial real estate, full service commercial real estate firm in the Valley. We're in the top 5 in just about every category of brokerage, management, development, all that other fun stuff. So we're excited to be here, and we think we're going to be a good partner for you.
Speaking of partnerships, you have a number of folks that are involved in this effort that you're undertaking. Describe some of the other folks that you might be working with.
That's an excellent question. No project this size, or any of our projects for that matter, is it a one-person show. One of our design partners is Winslow Partners. They're an award-winning architectural design firm. We'll get into it later, but the Maricopa Housing Authority has a footprint in the OTS. We work with several CPAs and CEOs and the nonprofit community coming up with financial models that best suit this. And we're recently completing the financial model for this project so that when we go to market to raise the capital needed for a project, I mean, this is going to be north of $100 million easily. To raise that kind of capital, you need a very strong financial model. And so we've got the right people at the table putting together that model. So when we go to market for it, we'll be successful.
$100 million.
Probably north of that, Councilman. Yes, it's a
wow.
neat project. We're excited about it.
That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of money. Have you ever done anything of this scope before, or have you had a similar projects that you've completed before that might make this one possible to do that?
Well, as I shared, no one project is one person. I've done personally myself several projects that are at or around $10 million, but a lot of the companies and organizations I work with, yes, we have done projects of this size and magnitude. Speaking
of partners, you have one of your partners with you here today with Kevin Kellogg and from the Housing Authority of Maricopa County. How what is your involvement in this project, and what do you expect to achieve with it?
Well, I'm the housing development manager, and along with our director, Gloria Munoz, executive director of the Housing Authority, and about 50 other people that work there, we have 17 housing sites, all providing affordable housing to low-income, very low-income residents. Some of it is Section 8, some's public housing, and some is just market affordable housing.
Okay.
And we own and manage all of that. It's about 1,000 units, including a couple of sites that are right in the OTS that we're about to, we just recently closed a financial package to renovate those sites and to provide a bunch of energy efficiency upgrades in the OTS.
Wow, so you're going to be upgrading some of the projects that are already in the OTS.
Right, we already have residents in the OTS, and we'll be upgrading those sites here in the next few months. But for the Heritage District, or specifically the commercial area, we are bringing forward a $30 million apartment project. It will have 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units.
Wow.
And a clubhouse with a couple of community rooms, a learning center, and some offices. So our focus on this site is to provide a high quality multifamily housing project that has a real neighborhood feel, that fits in with the design of this, kind of goes to that heritage of surprise, early 20th century, and reflects some of the heritage of the architecture of the area.
So you're talking about some pretty high quality housing that you're planning on putting in.
It is. This will be in every way equal to market rate housing. In some cases, better. We have to keep this for a very long time. We don't build and flip. We hang on to it and manage it.
Okay.
The financing is, to get to $30 million in a project like this is complicated. I don't know if it's as complicated as Cecil's, but we combine public and private investment, conventional loans, tax credits, bonds, grants, and plus some. So it's a complicated financial process that allows us to develop with the kind of rents that support families.
This sounds complicated. So this is not going to get put together in those 6 months or a year or something like that.
Well, we're already really well down the road with it.
Okay.
Yeah, we've already have financing commitments for it and are moving forward with our finance applications.
So we've already basically got the money committed to be able to do that? Or a good chunk of it?
We're on the way, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we are.
There's a lot of city services that are currently being provided to the residents from that area. We have a senior center. We have the Roy Villanueva Recreational Center. We have a pool. We have a library. What's going to happen to all of these services and facilities as a result of what you have planned, both in the short term and also if you could share with us what the long-term outlook looks like for these services?
It's not just the goal, but it will be the goal, or it is the goal, to maintain, preserve, and enhance all those facilities and all those operations. In fact, at the end of the day, presently, and Eric, jump in, I think there's about 40,000 square feet of space right now, plus or minus, and when we're done, we're hoping it should be right between 75,000 to 100,000 square feet of municipal space to do all those services and then some.
So if anything, you're planning on expanding the services available to the residents?
Not if anything, we will expand the services, but the exact size of the facilities for the municipality is somewhere between 75 and 100,000 square feet when
My
the project's
goodness.
complete.
That sounds pretty awesome.
What's real exciting about it, and you touched on it, is, and Kevin brought it up, is we're preserving the culture and the personality of the area. These buildings have been here, some of them long before all of us came to Arizona, for that matter. But we want to preserve that architecture and that sense of place, that sense of ownership, so that your city services are going to be enhanced and keep just as user-friendly, if not more.
There's a lot going into this project. How do you really plan to integrate these things into the project? I've had some discussions with you before this show, and we talked something about some public areas within this area, that there would be like artworks and stuff.
Community gathering, as you know, is really big in municipal operations. Creating usable space that the community can gather, whether it be a small Taste of Surprise venue or a small farmer's market, all the way to an outdoor movie theater or outdoor film festival, concerts, the right size concerts or music venues. We're going to create several community spaces that can be utilized by Surprise and their residents and businesses, for that matter, to enhance the area and make it a real fun, user-friendly, sense of community type spot.
Well, this project sounds like it's going to be something very new and different for the original town site, and also for the folks that live there. How do you anticipate incorporating this in a sensitive manner in this neighborhood?
Well, we can all jump in, but just as we're doing with you now, Councilman, is having these types of conversations, and obviously we're going to continue to have community outreach and ask for input. As Eric pointed out, I mean, a few years ago you started this study and gathering and asking questions and
Right.
Getting survey information, asking what the community wants, what the residents want, the business community and whatnot. And I think we've compiled a really strong team that can provide all those types of services and space that the community has shared with us what they're looking for.
That brings me to one other question that I had, and that is that this development is going to involve a lot of money. Other than the property that the city owns and has acquired in the area, how are we going to put together all of the money that it's going to take to do this?
That's an excellent question. Creative finance and development is a must. We are going out to the open markets, meaning private investment, retail investment as well, meaning some banks and lending institutions, as well as the economic grant world. The OTS qualifies for a lot of the economic development entitlement and investment dollars that are available out there, and leveraging those resources on both the private and public sector to finance a project this size is the direction that we're going to go.
So in other words, from the city of Surprise, our contribution is basically the cost of acquiring the land?
That's pretty much it, yes. The plan is no further investment needed from the city standpoint.
About a month ago at my District 4 meeting, you were kind enough to come and speak to some of the residents about some of the things that were going on in connection with this project. I believe Eric was there as well, and I know the Housing Authority was also there. So we plan on having more of these meetings, as you indicated, and the first one of those is going to be on Wednesday, January the 17th, which is barely 2 weeks from the time this is being recorded. And then on January the 22nd, the advisory board for the recreation campus is going to be talking with you, and you're going to be talking with them and getting some input on January the 22nd at the City Hall in the community room. And on February the 7th, and again on February the 28th, we're also going to have some more outreach meetings to the community so that we can get input. Everybody, I'm sure, has something to say about what we're going to do with $100 million. And before we break ground And before the spade hits the earth, those folks have an opportunity to put their 2 bits worth in and tell us what they'd like to see, and so that we can consider those things in the designs of what's coming.
Absolutely.
So I just want to thank all of you for coming out today and sharing with us some information about this exciting project. This is going to be probably 2-3 more years in the works by the time we're all done with it. But I think planning up front is really important, and we want to get everybody's input into that. If you would like to talk more about this show, please reach out to me. Call me, email, or let's set up a time to chat. We will be hosting, as I indicated earlier, a series of public meetings in the Roy Villanueva Recreational Center over the next 2 months to share details and updates. You will find a listing of all meetings on the city's website. Also, as a reminder, I host my monthly District 4 meetings on the last Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m. at the Community Center on Hollyhock Street. I hope to see you there, and thank you for watching the show.